Okay, good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting of the Woodstock Village Board of Trustees to order at 8:15 on January 2nd. The first item on the agenda is additions to and deletions from the posted agenda. Are there any additions or deletions?
I don't have anything.
Eric?
No, I don't have
Jeffrey?
anything, no.
Brenda? Jill? The next item on the agenda is citizen comments. Jill, do you have any citizen comments? Is there anyone online with citizen comments? Seeing as how there's none, we're going to move to the discussion of the FY26 budget. Discussion number 3, I believe. So we've been talking, we haven't made any solid decisions yet, but we're gonna talk some more and hopefully make some decisions today. Eric?
Yeah, and I asked Jill Davies to be here. There were some questions last meeting about what the funds, Rockefeller Fund, could be used for, could not be used for. So Jill's gonna kind of walk us through what they can be used for and what the options are going forward.
Okay. Well, do you want to start with that?
Yeah, if Jill's ready. I want to thank Jill. This is on very short notice. I appreciate her taking the time right after the new year to come talk to us. So.
Morning. Right, so I'm Jill. I live in the village and I'm part of the investment committee with Jeffrey, and we've worked on this for I think it must be 6 or 7 years now.
Yes.
It's a long time. So if I just give you some general stuff about the fund and then talk about how it can and can't be used. So I went back, we have a statement of policy that guides the work of how this endowment fund is spent. So it's a joint fund between the select board and the village trustees. So any decisions have to be made by both boards. The intention, well, I'll wait for her.
Hi, Lisa.
The intention of the money came from the Rockefellers when they gave the mansion to the National Park Service, was to substitute for the property taxes that go away because the national park doesn't pay property taxes. So they were aware of that. So they left an amount of money, and they said for the first 20 years, they wanted it to be paid to the town and the village in lieu of taxes. After 20 years, which is now, it can actually be used any way that you decide. But that was their preference. So the investment committee is an advisory committee and has took some steps years ago to invest the money in different places. And we've seen, I think it started off at, when we got involved, it was maybe $1 million, and now it's worth $2 million. The fund pays out every year to the village and the town, and we pay an amount of property tax, and then we increase that amount each year by the rise in taxes. So it's an increasing amount. The policy says that we cannot, or you cannot take more than 8% of the average market value of the funds for the last 12 quarters. So I worked out what that was. The average market value is $2.2 million, $2.1 million. So you can take up to 8% of that. I've been working recently with the Vermont Community Trust, and 5% seems to be a very commonly used number. 8% is considered by some to be too aggressive, so that if you're really managing the fund for the long term and you want it to be there in the future as much as you do in the present, then taking 8% is considered the higher risk, and the 5% is fine. What we gave last year was $87,500, actually this financial year, and that's 4.2% of the average market value. So the select board and trustees could decide to put that amount up.
Can I ask a question there? Is the policy a policy the group created, a policy that the Rockefellers created when the 8%?
No, the boards created that.
So that when the Rockefellers gave the money back in the 1990s, there was an ordinance created, and then that ordinance has been updated. So one of our tasks when we were formed was to update that, but I don't think we changed the 8%.
No,
but the same.
But the Rockefeller, there's no limit at this point other than what the boards decide.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted to change that policy, they could.
Yes, I mean, it really depends how you want to manage the fund for the long term. Do you want to spend the money today, which would completely change everything that's written about the fund and the whole practices? But that would be your decision and the select board's decision. Or do you want to keep it paying taxes as it has been doing every year for the foreseeable future? Or do you want to make small tweaks to it? Like if we went up to 5%, instead of distributing 87,500 between the town and the village, it would be 104,000. So your share would go from 12,000 to 14,000. If you went all the way up to the maximum, 8% would be, your share of that would be $23,000. You can make small changes, make quite a big difference. Or the one word that's there is extraordinary distributions can occur from time to time. So you and the select board have to decide what extraordinary means. And there's the advice from the committee is extraordinary really should be extraordinary. We shouldn't rely on this money to make up shortfalls. But say this building burnt down, that would be something extraordinary, and we might want to reach for this money or borrow against it and make it work. So those were the things I was noticing about the fund. Do you have more questions?
So,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you. So let's say the trustees wanted, to use the money to, I don't know, spend $10,000 on something. They would have to get the select board's approval as well, even if it was village related.
So first of all, they would have to decide it was extraordinary.
Yep.
Under the current policy, and then yes, they would have to get the select board to agree.
Is there a definition of it?
No,
No,
extraordinary.
and actually, I think extraordinary is somewhat the advisory committee's interpretation of the commands from the Rockefeller. It actually could be used for any purpose if the boards agree on it.
Yes, and the danger is just that I think the committee's desire would be that it's there for the long term. To lose this much money in taxes for something today probably has quite serious consequences, but somebody could work that out. And if we used it to like buy a truck, it feels like that's not extraordinary.
We did do that.
But we bought a partial truck and we bought a partial fire engine. But that was because of the market was riding so high. But these days, I mean, you have to decide what's extraordinary, and then you have to decide what you owe to the residents for the future, and the board that's going to make decisions in 20 years' time.
I have to go back a step here. So just because I didn't hear this before, so no matter what we decide to do, we still have to select board. We all have to agree.
Yeah.
Do we have to agree with what they do?
Yes, they have to. They can't do anything without your agreement, and you can't do anything without their agreement. It's a
It's
joint.
just the percentage. So if we say 4%,
Oh, that's just the
and they want 7%,
Mhm.
that's not going to work. It has to be. We have to decide on the percentage, and then we divide them. Is that right?
Yes, it's one fund of money. It's not two funds of money. You could decide. You can write policy. You can decide it's two separate policies, and one is it's two separate funds, and one is managed for the village and one is managed for town. You can do anything you like. There's a policy that tells you there's been guiding decisions for the past 30 years now. But you can change that. But nothing's going to happen very quickly, except a change in the percentage asked probably. But one thing I wanted to ask Robert is, what have you put in for the income we receive from this fund for the next financial year?
I have it in front of me. So for the town, we have 72,500. And for the village, we have 11,500.
So it's going to be more than that. You're getting 87, you're getting 12,000 this year. So you'll get 12,000 plus a percentage for next year. So we've just created another $1,000 in your budget.
So you think it would be 12,500?
It'll be, you can decide. But if it was later on this week, I'm going to deposit 12,000, which is your FY25 money. And then if we can continue with current practice, next year will be 12,000 plus the rise in taxes.
4%.
No, the
4.2.
rise in
Rise in
taxes. So if
taxes.
you're talking about a 10% rise in taxes, you'll get another $1,200, so it'll be
Yeah.
13.2.
Taking 4% out of the fund.
Yeah,
Okay, but we
Well-
could decide that could be 12%, yeah, within the
Yeah.
guidelines.
Yeah.
But we could say, for as we're working on this budget, we know that obviously the budget's higher than we'd like. We could say, we want 6%, we'd have to discuss that with the select board.
yeah, yeah.
But it doesn't have to be 12,000 for next year, it could be something different if we decide on it with the select board.
Yeah,
So that 12,000 is not set in stone, that's where it is.
it's just the practice of the up to date.
Okay.
So there's policy and there's practices.
What do you have for the town for this year? Sorry, just so.
15.5.
So how much? 15?
15.5 is what you'll get for FY25
For the town or the village?
town. Village is 12,000.
$155,000 to 15.5.
You budgeted at 72.5. Right, so this year, in 2 weeks' time, I will deposit 87,500 for both of you. Right, so sorry, it's not that, is it? So town is 75,500. Yeah,
So we've discussed two things related to this, or we can discuss two things, I think. Well, for one, I like the idea of going to 5%. I think it's still fiscally responsible, and it's going to help us reduce on the overwhelming increase in budget that the taxpayers are facing. Every little bit we can find would be helpful, and I think 5% would be prudent. The other thing is we've talked about reducing our contingency fund by $10,000 to, again, lower the taxpayer thing, knowing that with some consultation, we need to talk about this with the select board, that we could consider up to that amount that we'd lose from the endowment fund if needed. But our history shows that we generally don't need that. So again, it would take an unusual circumstance for us to say, yeah, we want to take $10,000 out. So I don't think that that's a big deal. It's just, I think it's a good way of saying, well, if we need it, that's one source we could go to. And with the select board's approval, with those kind of limitations, I don't think that they would have a problem, but we have to discuss it.
I like the idea of going up to 5%. For this year, I might be comfortable going up a little higher. I mean, that would obviously be a discussion. Because I feel like we are in extraordinary circumstances.
what caused but what the advisory committee will ask
No,
you is
not
what's
the-
caused the extraordinary.
Yeah, no, so not extraordinary circumstances in terms of taking out a big chunk, but going from 4% to 6%. So that shouldn't use the word extraordinary. But I feel like this year we are in a circumstance where if we can bring the taxes down just because it's so expensive right now, I would be interested in doing that. And I don't completely disagree with the idea of getting rid of the contingency.
Not all the contingency.
Yeah, my concern is I don't want, I do want the Rockefeller Fund as it's intended to be extraordinary circumstances and not and I would love to have a broader conversation about that because extraordinary circumstances are different depending on a different person and a different day of the week. But I don't want the precedent to be, we don't save money for just in case, we go dip into Rockefeller just in case. I don't want it to be a slush fund. It's an emergency fund, not a slush fund, which is two different things. So I'd want to be just really careful about that and maybe we talk about what the contingency fund is used for.
I'd ask you one more thing.
Yes, please.
Please stop calling it the Rockefeller Fund.
Oh,
It's
okay.
actually called the Vermont Endowment Trust Fund.
Whoops.
Vermont Trust, VETF.
So it's not Rockefeller's money anymore. It's the residents of Woodstock's money.
And that changed after the 20 years.
No, it changed when he gave it.
Okay. Oh, oh. Thank you for the correction.
First time I've
So just,
heard that.
just a thought. What if we did 4% and then took 1% and allotted it for future situations such as the water and the sewer?
Well, so one thing I was thinking about is that the money's invested in the stock market right now, and that's why it's been doing so well. So you could earmark a certain amount, but leave it in the market, leave it in the fund, but just keep earmarking that. So just take what is taxes plus the percentage increase. And if there's any more left over and say underneath 6% or 5%, then you put it in a pot and that pot is there.
So it's still making money.
It's still making money.
Money, but we've kind of allotted it or the idea would be for future repairs and maintenance of infrastructure going forward.
Or whatever you decide it's for.
And Eric,
You know,
I just wanted to get a clarification because you wrote it in an email a month and a half ago and I've forgotten, so I apologize. But when we first started having this conversation, you talked about, so we're at a 17% increase, whatever it is. And so you said to get it down, and I think Jeffrey said, and I don't disagree, like, it'd be great to get it down to 15%, you know, the best that we can do.
no, listen,
Okay, below 15%,
Mhm.
Jeffrey, as low as humanly possible. What is it, how much money equals, if you want to get it down a percent, that is how many thousand?
About $6,000.
Okay,
We
so,
just found you 3 this morning from this
Yes.
fund.
so there you
Yeah.
go. So we're down 0.5% already.
Seeing laughter.
that's what my ideal is 12. I
Yeah.
said I want to see us get down
So-
below 14, to ideally 12.
Okay, so that money was not in this budget as income?
It was.
We had 11,500 and Jill says this year is 12,000. And so next year, the budget we're working on could be potentially higher.
Okay.
So right now I put 12,000 in, so it's a $500 increase, but if,
It's not good, but you can go, I'll go higher than 12. I would, if you're going to do 10% tax increase, there's going to be 13,000 revenue coming to you.
yeah, so once we know what the tax rate is.
Okay.
And make that adjustment.
Okay,
Yeah, I think we should be able to go a little higher.
And because I have a cheat sheet, if we took out 8%, it would be about $23,000.
Yeah.
But I don't think we want to go up to 8%.
What the
can we
fuck-
make, can each year make a different percentage choice, correct?
As long as it's with the select board.
And as long as it's between 5 and 8.
So to move forward, we need to have a meeting with the select board.
Yeah.
For this year's budget on this topic.
Yes.
As a narrow scope topic. So I suggest that we try to arrange that.
So the select board is meeting Tuesday at 4 PM. Select board meeting at 6:30. But we could also try to schedule something else, maybe after that meeting, like Wednesday morning or something.
I need to add one thing. So I'm speaking to you, I think I'm speaking to you as Jill. We haven't had an investment advisory group meeting, so this probably doesn't represent all of the views of that group. If you want us to try and do that, we could.
When do we have to make a
I think
final
you,
decision?
wait, let's answer Jill's question. I think Jill, you've laid this out in a manner that within the scope of what we're considering, I don't think the committee would have a problem with you. I mean, if we went up to 5%, for instance, as a,
There will be some people who will not want to change current practice.
How many people are on the advisory?
4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
I
5.
thought it was fine.
Who's on the board?
Ann Quasman, Jeffrey, myself, Mark Hall, and Patrick Proctor.
When do we have to make our decision by? When is the drop
We've
dead?
been saying January
What?
Final
January
budget.
16th.
We have a little time. We do in the world of,
Should just go with meeting with the select board to discuss
Yeah,
specific dollars for this year's, the budget we're discussing.
and you said their meeting is they have a meeting
Tuesday at 4 p.m. The next for their budget.
on the 7th. Yeah, we don't have a meeting that day. We have a meeting on the 14th.
Sorry, the 14th. Yeah. Sorry.
The,
So-
What if between now and then, if Jill got together with her board and got updated
We
information,
have to call them an advisory committee, they don't.
advisory committees? Pardon me.
Mountain
Don't tell us what to do.
on advisory.
Yeah.
So you're, say the dates again, I'm sorry, I didn't.
So select board's meeting on this coming Wednesday at 4
Tuesday.
p.m. Oh, sorry, this coming Tuesday at 4 p.m.
We're meeting that night.
No, we meet on the 14th.
On
They're
the
meeting on the
14th.
7th.
Oh, you're for the 7th.
Yeah.
So we
it's like-
could tack on a joint meeting, say 5 o'clock, or
Yeah.
earlier. If select board
I-
wants.
So if we try and get the groups of view before then, that might be helpful.
Yeah.
Right, so Tuesday at 5 o'clock, is that what we're
Yeah.
saying?
But we don't have to stay. We just need to get
Let me
this
talk to the
one
select board,
issue.
make sure they're obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's try to do that.
I mean, this is just a one
What's the
thing that
date
we're
on
gonna
that?
talk to them
The
about.
7th.
correct? Am I hearing that
Yes,
correctly?
yes.
So Tuesday, January 7th, you're gonna check them with select board and then Bill will send something out. And the focus is, so the focus of that conversation will be about the Vermont Endowment Fund. In their meeting on Monday, did they discuss anything that would affect our budget that we need to talk on that agenda?
Yes.
Yes, so one thing they discussed was potentially raising the fees for dispatching.
Okay,
It got brought up. They've talked a little bit about a planning director or a similar position being funded. I don't want to speak for the board, but it seemed they kind of shied away from funding it for the full year. There were conversations on funding it maybe halfway through the year or 3/4 of the way through the year as a way to save some money. But that would also then lock them in, obviously, to funding it going forward as a full-time position. They didn't make a decision on that, but that's kind of what the two major things they talked about that would impact the trustees.
wait,
Well,
two
no.
major?
So increasing the dispatch fees.
Yeah.
And then potentially a planning director.
How does dispatch fees affect us?
So the trustees, the village sends about $64,000 to the town for dispatching. The dispatch staffing falls under the town's purview. But because the police use them, the police are a department underneath the trustees, so that money goes back, it goes that way.
So it's related. But I've also heard of another idea, and I don't know if you've looked into this yet. Where that which would be employees contributing an additional 2% to the
Mhm.
healthcare expenses.
So
How that would affect the budgets.
yeah, Robert's here, so he can get up. He created the numbers a little bit while ago. Let me just pull it up. Yeah, if you don't mind.
Tell us who you are.
Robert Dunsmore, Finance Director, Town Village of Woodstock. Yeah, I did some research on what a potential change in healthcare would be. And the total across the town, village and sewer was seeing only about a $13,000 difference. With, where the percentages lie, we're looking at like $3,000 potentially we could save in the village.
So it's, sorry, Robert's exact number. So it's an overall savings of $13,463.60. For the village, it would be a savings of $3,151.97. I have asked Upper Valley managers to send me their splits. I have about 15, 20 of them right now. I just got to put it in an Excel sheet for everyone. And it runs the gamut from 80/20 to 100%. So I just got to put it together. I know one of them, can't remember the name of the town right now, but they went from 100 down to 90/10, and then went back to 100 because they found that it hurt recruitment for employees.
So that would reduce things another 0.5% if that was something that came to be.
Yeah.
For the village.
What I will say too, when Robert pulled these numbers last week, that change would cost the average employee about $500 and added costs for the year. So then you're kind of in a place where salaries, where we're behind most places with salaries, and, COLA 3% or something, you're taking, a quarter or sometimes half of their increase that year away for the health insurance costs. That's also a factor as well.
And can you remind me, what is the split right now?
It's 93.7.
We pay 93 and the employees,
Correct,
the
yeah.
town pays 93.
So, everyone's healthcare costs go up, whether they work for the town or they're not working for the town. And Medicare, mine have gone up significantly. I'd like to suggest that we consider a couple of things, that we consider this, and talking to the select board about that 2% also. But in addition, I'd like to suggest that the trustees consider removing our compensation to let the employees know that we are willing to, try to do our best to bring this budget down. And we can do that as a complete board, or we could do that as individuals on this board. And I think we should consider that. I'd be happy to give up the $750 to try to help the situation.
I like that idea, Jeffrey. I do agree it's individual, but I'm happy to give mine up as well. But we do need to seriously consider the 2%, only because we've been hit by a water company bill, the education tax. Everyone hurts right now. And so where can we take the most sting away from here? But I'm happy to get mine up as well, to use towards the budget.
Yeah.
I'm also still thinking, and going back to Jill's fund, I think 5% is a good idea. And commented on that, raising it to 5%.
Yeah, I'm supportive.
So I'm just going through the things that I haven't. So these are the 3 so far that I've heard that I think would be helpful.
I was so great. I'd be happy to give.
And I mean, I always fine with that. We have done that 2 other times prior. And so I think it's a good show of solidarity. I'm a fan of precedent, as you know, and I just don't want it to become there could be people in these positions that need that 750. So
But this would just be, my suggestion is just for
Yeah.
this year's budget.
Yeah.
And personal, not.
To be
Yeah.
decided on each year.
yeah, and we've done it twice in the past. I think we did it during COVID, when there were tough times and when the cost of living went up. But I also don't want the salaries to be a slush fund either.
Right.
I think it's a good thing to do, but it's
Well, it would be
Like-
another 0.5%, and then
Yeah.
so about 0.5%, if the 2%, if that goes, we can do that, that would be the 0.5%, so that's another 1% down from where we were. Which, and then with the increase from the endowment, actually, we can get it down a little bit more.
oh, yeah.
I'm Jill from the village. I just want to make one comment. You're sitting here very happily, or not happily, but talking about 17%, 12%. Do you realize that the CPI went up by 2.3% this year? So many people are looking at no income increase beyond 2%. So every decision you make is really, really important.
Thank you.
And to that point, and we get to this point every year, this year it's obviously everybody's budget is the same this year in terms of municipalities. But this is, and I want to discuss this further at our next trustees meeting, and then I think it warrants a joint meeting with the select board, but we can't cut our way out of this. And we don't know what next year is going to be, if it's going to be high again. We just can't keep cutting and slush funding our way out of it. So I think this year I want to propose it's a committee, it's a task force on not just finding revenue, but doing an audit and saying, what are our fees? Where do people owe us money? Whether that's parking tickets or ambulance things, and not just village, but town as well, because there is money out on the street that belongs to the town, belongs to the village, and we're not getting it in for various reasons. And so I'd love to know what that is, where it is it possible to get it back? Is it not? And then looking at our fees for permits, looking at our fees for police, looking at those sorts of things and saying, are they where we need them to be? Are we applying them fairly? Do we want to apply them differently? And then from that audit going into, and Brenda's had tons of ideas about revenue, you know, whether it's renting out things or what it is, because we can't do this on the backs of the taxpayers anymore. I mean, it's largely on them, it's largely on us, but we have to go find money somewhere else instead of continually cutting and, you know, making other people pay for this in the town or the village. So that's something that I want to be a priority for this year. I think in terms of goals, we talked about efficiencies. I think that falls in line with that. One of our other goals, at least for the village, was tourism, how we can do a better job at that. And I think that can fall in line with the tourism. Is there a way that we can figure out how to make that less expensive for the village, or that we can gain more money? But yeah,
Disney World, you pay to go to Disney World, pay to come to Woodstock, pay to come to Woodstock, pay to.
yeah, and I think we have to not be shy about it. And whatever the ideas are, let's start with big ideas, and we'll have the conversations with the community about what to do. But I think finding the audit first of where is the money, what are we losing, plugging those holes, plugging those leaks, getting that money in, and then saying, okay, what's the revenue that we don't have now that we could reasonably get? Because again, like, this is not cool for the taxpayers. And I don't want to cut things more than we have to. It's not fair. It's not fair to the people who live here and work here to have services, to have their quality of life cut because we're not bringing enough money.
Now, one more question. So if all of the special articles were removed from the village and from the town, what difference would that make to the percentages?
And with the petitions or the petitions that nonprofits file, is that your question?
The things that we vote on as special articles separate to the budget.
Yeah, so those are the petitions that like nonprofits will have signed and asked for money.
Great.
Last year was $400,000. 250, 300.
And what's that as a percentage?
So you're talking about 3-4% on the town side.
But the special articles on the village budget are very, very low on in our budget.
Yeah, it's like one. Yeah,
So it's a town
It's
thing.
like almost nothing.
Yeah.
Who is it?
In the village, I'm just curious.
Maybe
I vote for it.
I think isn't the money for the audits to cover the cost of the
Yeah.
audit? Yeah,
Yeah.
It's a special article?
yeah. The trustees. Yeah,
That's another area we could do efficiency.
yes.
Oh, we had an article for $3,000 for decorations.
that's it.
And then 400 for trustee of public funds, and then 400 for audit. So we had 3 special articles.
And I think in the past, Jill has waived her 400 out of the last 2 years.
So there's,
Just pull a chair over.
yes, I waived the 400, but anyway, it would come out of public trust funds, so it wouldn't go onto it wouldn't net down. But why don't you take off the 3,000 decorations? That was voted on by a group of people here when money wasn't an issue. We don't need more decorations.
We need to continue to maintain the decorations that the village needs.
Have somebody else pay for it instead of all the residents.
Who's going to pay for it?
Well, people, we don't need it. There were double the number of lights that we need this year. We don't need it. What we need is for people to stay in the community and not be driven out by higher taxes.
Oh, that one thing though, which I think brings
Yeah, I
a lot of light to the village, that a lot of us enjoy, and
Okay, let's,
okay,
Big discussion.
okay,
we'll have to disagree.
let's move on, guys, because we've got people that have jobs that pay them.
So 2 quick things. One thing I did forget: the select board did talk about whether or not to stop having the fireworks be funded by taxpayers.
Just that.
This year will be about 14,000. And if looking for an organization to take over, then I haven't decided on that, but that was one big thing. The other thing I'll say, because I know we're short on time, is at the last meeting, the trustees asked us to look to get the tax rate down to 14%. While I was on vacation, Robert spent a lot of time going through it. And based on the extra money we found as well from the endowment trust fund, We have a balanced budget now at 13.8% of a tax increase.
And with what we've discussed today, we can get that below 12.
Potentially, yeah. If that's the
I
decision.
have a general question because I'm looking at this budget right here in front of me.
Yep.
And there were some things that we discussed. Can I ask a few questions?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm still going to be adamant about not paying the Windsor Central Supervisory Union any money to park in their parking lot. I think that's a dishonor to the citizens here that live here. They already pay education taxes. Those education taxes maintain that parking lot. We do not need to pay them $1,000. I'm sorry, it's unacceptable. It's a double taxation, and that's one thing I'm adamant on, not a dime. The second thing is, where's the gun thing? Did it get taken?
So you're talking with the rifles?
Yep.
So that will be under law enforcement, weapons, maintenance and supplies. Right now, Robert kept one rifle in there.
I'm just looking for where it is. How much is a rifle, Robert?
About $1,200.
$1,200.
Oh, I'm looking, and I can't seem to find it.
So if you look on, so it'll be the second page under law enforcement. So it's salaries, police administration, then law enforcement.
Yeah,
If you go down to the third line, weapon maintenance and supplies.
so why am I missing this?
So it's 1,200 out of that number.
Yeah, so it's the number is $2,660. It's 1,200
Oh,
out of that.
I see. So it wasn't, I'm looking for it going, where's
Yeah.
1,200? Okay.
Yeah, we removed that, and then on top of that, we added revenue into our general interest, which is just based off I based it off the split that we have, which is the 55, 25, 20 of how I calculate interest. As well as we added to the short-term rental. And the short-term rental, we're thinking we have so many applications out there right now. So with the amount of applications, average amount per application, we figured that we were at a pretty safe number because it is the first year of the program. So we don't necessarily know what that revenue is going to be, but you want to be more conservative with that number.
And what was that again? Which number?
The short-term rental revenue, which I believe we have at like 25,000.
25,000, yes.
And how much of that is needed to cover the program?
Your percentage is about 13,000 for
Yeah.
GovOS.
And have checks come in because it's past the first of the year?
A few have, yes.
Yes, we have been receiving, for a couple weeks, I think we've received a few of the payments already for, the short-term rental program, so.
And Lisa, we'll talk about that more at our next meeting.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to put this
Yeah.
all together, but I do want to speak again yet. The number, I've been approached by multiple citizens in this community who say they should not have to pay parking fee for a school. And I really think that we need to consider that, even though it's $1,000, people just do not understand why we have to rent a parking lot from an elementary school where they send their children and they pay their taxes on.
I totally agree with that sentiment. I mean, the school board says, okay, you aren't going to give us anything. No parking at all.
Then we let the public know. Let the public know what the school board makes a decision about. They are citizens here too. So, I mean, if they say, no, we're sorry, then
It's 5 towns that make this decision, and I think a lot of it's from outside of Woodstock.
my neighbors have said this to me. So,
Yeah, no, I hear you.
and
I think it
I
should-
don't think we should, I think that they should be courteous to us. We've been courteous to them. And, it's an added expense to a community that just can't take any more added expense.
Okay. Noted. Is there
Thank you.
anything else?
That's just my one thing.
Got it.
No, it's $1,000.
So Eric, what is our next steps here?
Well, it seems like the trustees want to have a joint meeting with the select board, so I'll reach out to the chair of the select board this morning and make sure they're able to stay later to discuss a few joint things.
I want to support Lisa.
Oh, keep on, just so people on Zoom.
Okay.
Person on Zoom.
I want to support Lisa, and every single thing you've been talking about cutting, please cut it. And please don't ask for 12% more money.
Is there anything else on the budget for right now? There will be more later.
No.
Okay, in that case, I want to move on to our next agenda item, which is an executive session under 1 VSA 313 to discuss contracts, labor relation agreements with employees, arbitration, mediation, grievances, civil actions, or prosecutions by the state where premature public knowledge would clearly place the state, municipality, other public body, or person involved at a substantial disadvantage. I am reading that today. This is a new thing for us to add this to an agenda. Just so everybody knows, this is the legal explanation that is in the VSA. So this is just further clarifying and providing more transparency as to why we are going into executive session. So with that, go to the background. I've made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
Yes.
Just a second. Let me open up my video here if I can. Mike Donahue from the Vermont Standard. I'm just wondering which one of the 7 options you're actually considering. I mean, you're supposed to sort of say which of those 7, whether it's a contract, whether it's a labor relations agreement, and what is the specific substantial disadvantage?
We're
Yeah.
discussing personnel and legal issues.
I don't see legal issues as listed there. Which,
It is, you can find the exact language for you.
E, pending a probable civil litigation or prosecution to which public body is or may be a party.
Yes. What Eric just said.
I didn't hear what he said, sorry.
It's number E, pending or probable civil litigation or prosecution to which the public body is or may be a party.
And is there a pending case that you're referring to specifically?
There are illegal issues that premature knowledge might be a disadvantage for the town and its taxpayers.
I think
But again, is there a specific case that you're talking about today?
We are just talking about,
That's pending, that's known to the taxpayers or unknown?
we are just discussing legal issues.
Okay,
Okay, let's move.
thank you very much, appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thanks. Okay, we are back from executive session. No decisions were made. And the next item on the agenda is there any other business to come before the trustees today?
I have a quick question.
Yes,
I just want to review for the meeting. So we have a meeting next Tuesday,
possibly. I was going to talk to the select.
then our regular meeting,
14th.
then
The 16th is a drop dead date for the budgets.
the budget. Okay. So we'll have, okay. Just gotta confirm that.
Okay, any other business to come before the trustees? In that case, I would make a motion to adjourn at 9:11. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.